Tenda Mwadi, be thankful unto the Mother, Father, Creator of the universe, Kudzai, Modzimo Mukuru. Give praises unto our great ancestors, Abibi Fahodie, Abibi Tumi, African liberation and African power for all African people. Welcome back to another edition of the Pan-African Question. I know it's been a hot minute, it's been a while. I have not been idle, I've been working on a number of different things, and we will be getting it back to regular scheduled programming soon with the Pan-African Question, New Black Daily Diaries, and even more things, Kings and Queens. So do stay tuned for that. But today, I did want to take some time out to honor the life and the legacy of Mama, Queen Mama, Nomzamo Madikizela, more popularly known as Mama Winnie Mandela. I am recording this on the day of her birth, the 26th of September, and she was born in the year 1936. And so you'll be seeing this video in and around that date. And I think that it's important for us to continue to honor her because she is and remains one of the most vilified heroes of our revolutionary African history. And the least that we can do, in the face of the vilification that has been heaped upon her character, her personhood, by European imperialism and the forces of global white supremacy, is to correct the record, set the record straight, and defend her life, defend her legacy, and defend her character. And I just see it as our duty to continue to do so because that's the least we can do. To honor those who have sacrificed for us. And I believe that Mama Nomzamo is among those who, there's few people you could look at who have sacrificed more. And so we're going to honor her today, and we're going to honor her mostly, through her own words, through a documentary that I became familiar with as a child. My father exposed me to this documentary when I was a child, and it had a major impact upon me for two reasons, which I will explain in a second. But before we get into the video, just a little bit of background. So most of us would know the name Winnie Mandela as associated with being the wife of Nelson Mandela, who was sentenced to life imprisonment in the year 1964, for basically being involved in the anti-apartheid movement and the African liberation fight in Azania, South Africa. He comes out of prison in the year 1990 and becomes the president of South Africa in the year 1994. Not going to go too much into that history, but it's necessary to say, that whilst Nelson Mandela is in prison from 1964 to 1990, one of, if not the most prominent leader of the so-called anti-apartheid movement in South Africa is Queen Mama Nomzamo Madikizela Winnie Mandela. And whilst many people understand and know of the 20-odd years that Nelson Mandela spent in prison and what that represents in terms of sacrifice, few people are as aware of what Mama Nomzamo went through whilst he was in prison. I've already said she was at the helm of the movement, leading the charge as a leading member of the African National Congress, the ANC. Her home was raided many times. She was arrested, tortured, and beaten many times. She was banished to a place in South Africa called Brantford. And the point of that was to take her out of the heart of the battle, which was in places like Soweto, where she lived. And so basically, she was effectively on house arrest from 1977, I believe, to the year 1985, whereby basically she discarded and rejected this exile that was imposed upon her and returned to Soweto. But even all during this, she became a leading member, of Umkhonto Wesizwe, which means Spear of the Nation, which is the military wing, was the military wing of the ANC during that time. So people like herself and another ancestor by the name of Chris Hani, were at the helm of the military, the armed rebellion against apartheid in South Africa. And so she was considered to be a terrorist, yeah, not only by the government of South Africa, but the entire Western world, yeah, during this time, all right? And so this was the work, yeah, that Mama Nomzamo was doing. When the ANC was a banned organization, she rejected the nature of the ban and openly wore ANC colors and held ANC rallies, yeah, at threat of her own life and endangerment to her own children during these times. And so the excerpt that we're going to watch is, I believe this film was released in the 1980s. Forgive me because I don't know exactly which year. But it's going to be her speaking about the 491 days, yeah, that she was in prison during 1969 into 1970. She has a book also on this subject, which is why we know the exact number of days that she was in prison. Much of this time she spent in solitary confinement. And I want to share this with brothers and sisters for two reasons. Yeah, the first is that she gives a detailed explanation of what she went through, yeah, what kinds of abuses were imposed upon her during this time, yeah. And I think it's important that we connect with that because, as I've said, many people do not know about what Mama Nomzamo went through whilst her then husband was in prison. And the second reason, and for me the most important one, is the resolve, yeah. She concludes her explanation with a resolve and a resolution, yeah, that had a major impact upon me as a child, and I think that we can all learn from. So I want you all to pay attention to the conclusion, yeah, of what she took out of that experience at the end of her explanation. Honor to the name Nomzamo Madikizela, Mama Winnie Mandela. We honor you and we vow to continue to protect your name and defend your legacy and your character. Amandla Awetu.
In 1969, Winnie Mandela was again arrested, this time under the Terrorism Act. 21 others were arrested at the same time, but Winnie was held in solitary confinement for 16 months.
When they detained me, I had just been to a heart specialist. I have a heart condition, and the security branch knew that. They knew I had been to the doctor. They knew I had been to a heart specialist. And I think they particularly arrested me then because of that knowledge, with the hope that perhaps the condition would worsen in prison, and that whatever happened to me would then be attributed to natural causes. The cell in which I was held at the beginning was so small that if I stretched my hands, I touched both walls. I could barely exercise. In this cell, all I had was a bottle, a plastic bottle with about 5 glasses of water, a homemade sanitary bucket, and 3 blankets, and a sisal mat. That is all, besides what I was wearing. Being held in Communicado is one of the cruelest things any human being can do to another. About a week after I was held, I was transferred to the condemned cell. A condemned cell means a cell that usually holds prisoners who are going to be executed. In this condemned cell, there were 2 grill doors besides the prison door. To this day, the memory of that bunch of keys, the clicking, the noise they would deliberately make in the stillness and solitude of a prison life. You actually felt they were hitting the inner core of your soul. They never switched off the light. I had this floodlight night and day. I lost track of time. This particular wardress who always brought my food would open the cell door, and I could hear someone outside putting the food down. And she would stand right at the entrance to the cell. They would then take the bucket, the sanitary bucket, and turn the lid upside down and put your plate of food on that. And she would stand right at the cell door and kick the food in, kick it into the cell. The mind finds it very difficult to adjust to such solitude. It is such utter torture that I could feel that my mind was so tortured with lack of doing something and not communicating with anyone that I would find myself talking to the children. I would think I am thinking about them, and actually find myself in the end conducting conversations with my children as if they are with me in the cell. It becomes so difficult to keep sane with absolutely nothing to do that I would actually hunt for ants. If I had an ant in the cell or a fly, then I would regard myself as having company for the day. When I was given anything, if anything at all, it was the Bible. One day the Swanepoel stood at the cell door and flung the Bible at my face. And he threw it and said, "There you are, pray. Pray so that your God can get you out of this cell."
While in solitary, Winnie Mandela underwent intensive interrogation under the direction of Police Colonel Swanepoel.
He was the one who murdered a lot of my people behind bars. He was actually the horror of Pretoria Central. I was interrogated right through, day and night, for 7 days and 7 nights. As they changed the teams, Swanepoel would rub his hands and say he is waiting for that moment when they shall break me completely. By the time they interrogated me, they knew everything. They knew all about my political activities at the time. And the African National Congress, of course, was a banned organization, which meant that whatever political activities I was involved in at that time were underground political activities. There was nothing they didn't know. They had managed to break a few of those they had interrogated before me. The body devises its own defensive mechanisms. I didn't know it was such relief to faint, for instance. And during the only moment I ever had any rest from the intensive interrogation and intensive questioning, where your mind just loses track of everything, was during those fainting spells. They were so relieving. I could recover, and from each fainting spell, when I came round, I felt a little refreshed to face more and more interrogation. On the 7th day, I started urinating blood, and the body was swollen like a balloon. I don't know the medical explanation for that, whether it's because of sitting in one position for days and nights right through. But my legs, for instance, were as if they were just poles that were not part of my body. I could actually feel the weight so solemn, so ominous they were, that I found it difficult to stand. And that didn't stop my interrogators in any way. I don't remember how I was brought back to the cell. I found myself just there on Sunday. In the end, the fainting spells were much more acute, I think, as the body was beginning to give in to that type of brutality. Prior to my detention, I knew that as a mother and as a social worker, life, the human being, was so sacrosanct that I could never on my own lift up a finger against any human being for ideological reasons. But what I went through, that personal experience, hardened me so much that at the end of my interrogation, looking at my interrogators and what I had gone through, I knew that as I sat in that cell, if my own father or my brother walked in dangling a gun, and he was on the other side, and I had a gun too in my hand, in defense of the ideals for which I was being tortured, then I would fire. The security branch had made me the soldier at heart I am today. There was no way that you could talk any language of peace to vicious men who treated defenseless women and children in that manner. I realized then that the Afrikaner had closed the chapter of negotiation, and that the decision taken by my leaders in 1962 was arrived at with difficulty, but that there was no other way. The decision to defend our honor, the decision to stop turning the biblical other cheek, the white man, had hit us for too long. Our patience had been tested and had endured for too long. I knew then that somehow there had to be a political crisis in this country for us to reach the ultimate goal.
Maibuye, Africa, Africa, Maibuye.